to ask your question. Okay? Let me allow some more people to join. Okay. So we're back to the presentation. Um, so this is the thing. Next thing is today's speakers. It's Kumaresh. I have the LinkedIn information for all of you in the invite, so you can look up the details about the speaker, myself, and Nitya. So Slido, what you need to do is that for you to be able to interact with the host and the co-host and the presenter, you can use this thing called Slido. Now you don't have to download anything. There is no app download. There is no download of any kind required. Just go to open your browser and type slido.com. When you type slido.com, you should see a screen like this, saying that joining as a participant. Once you do this, you can type the code name there, 745745419 as a code that you type. That is the code for today's session. If you see the previous slide, this is our thing. Now, if you want to do it directly in your mobile phone, you can scan the QR code. It will automatically take you to Slido and to this particular session, and you can start asking questions, answering polls, etc. All that. Okay. And once you enter that, you'll get this screen. This is the screen you will see in your computer, and you can here ask your question. You can go to the polls and answer the polls. So all that you could do. We will be Nitya and I will be getting your questions live. You should also be able to see the questions of the other participants also. So if you want to ask a question and somebody has already asked a question, perhaps you don't want to ask the same question again. But feel free to ask questions anytime during the presentation. After the first 30 minutes is over, Nitya will do the Q&A session where if the question is a very unique question, then she will ask that person who asked the question to ask it themselves, at which point the person can unmute and ask the question. If the question is not unique and many people have asked similar questions, Nitya will ask the question on behalf of all of you. And if there is still some additional clarification required, then you can send a request to Slido again, or you can just unmute and ask your question. Okay? If everybody is clear, then we can straight away go into the session. Clear so far? Okay. So welcome, Kumaresh, to the presentation. I hope you're doing okay in San California. I just want a quick rundown. There is a poll that I put out just a few minutes ago, asking everybody where you're coming from. It might be interesting to know where these people are. I'm sure the people are all over the world, but if you could just take a moment to go to Slido's poll and then answer the open-ended question where you're from. You can do it while listening to the conversation because we'll be able to get your feed real time as well. Okay. So the first question we're going to ask today to Kumaresh is, Kumaresh, how did you get to where you are now from the time you left CEG? Now, what I'm looking for here is significant learnings and significant milestones that you crossed between the time you left CEG to where you are right now.
Sure. Vish, Nitya, thanks for organizing this. It's awesome to start this with the Tamil Thai word and just see that building and remind ourselves that we are from Asia's oldest engineering institution and have alumni like Vish who graduated with the gold medal in the year I was born. It just goes on to show how strong an alumni connection we have, like to be able to have conversations like this. So thank you for organizing this. And thanks everyone for joining. It's awesome to see everyone across Chennai, Coimbatore, Milano, Singapore. So I'll try to keep this as broad and globally applicable as possible in my responses. The journey from 2007 now to 2021. 2007 was when I graduated from CEG. It's been one of a lot of adventures. Just a quick kind of background. I After graduating from CEG, I went to UIUC to pursue a master's in computer science, and from there, I did a sequence of things that were not related at all. I interned at a hedge fund in Chicago as a quant to see what it was like to work in the financial industry. I then worked as a researcher at Microsoft in Seattle, and then switched to engineering and then to product management within Microsoft. And after 4 years at Microsoft, I moved to the Bay Area to work for LinkedIn, largely because it was the closest in terms of connection between my mission and the company's mission, helping people connect with opportunity. So that's been the journey so far. And I would say in this journey, the two biggest things that I took away from CEG would be number one, the relationships and the community. Almost every move I made was inspired by an alumnus, or a friend of mine that I made at CEG, or a professor. And in many ways, it was inspired by moves that they had made. Like what kinds of first time things. Like there was this thing about, hey, if our if our seniors have made it to Stanford, maybe we should make it to MIT. If they've made it to Microsoft, maybe we should make it to Google. And to try and take it one step further and make sure uh, we are just advancing what in everything we do. So the community has by far and away been the biggest thing I've taken away from CEG, and in some ways, I'm also hoping to pay it forward. And the second part would be the skill sets that you pick up, but it's not quite the skills themselves, but it's more the ability to learn, like learning to learn. And on that front, just the academic rigor and everything that you pick from seeing what others do is where I would say most of these transitions have come in handy. So,
Okay, super, super, Kumaresh. So the next question I have for you is, what is the one thing, if you had to pick only one thing, what is the one thing that you can pinpoint that you got from CEG that was the most helpful in your career so far?
uh, I'd probably say the community. It's and I know the community is a broad word, but it's this. It comes down to people. It's the it's alumni, my immediate classmates who I stay in touch with. They are my closest friends till today, and of course the professors. Uh, the reason I say this is because almost everything you do. So, as an example, I at some point I became a machine learning engineer, and machine learning wasn't a course that was offered at CEG in my time, like 2003 to 2007. But the fact that the world needed the skill set and that it was being used in companies like Microsoft and Google was something that I wouldn't have been aware of if not for spending time with classmates, with people that have worked at these companies, and that's where I would say everything about what we do comes back to the community.
Hmm. Okay. So the next question I have for you is that you had, from your resume, you can see you had worked for Microsoft for a while. You interned at Google after leaving Siege. I presume Google in Bangalore, I presume. Uh,
That's right.
and now you have worked in LinkedIn. So you have touched three very big brands in tech industry. Can you share the plus and minus? Again, minus you don't have to answer if you don't want to answer. Can you share the plus and minus of these three institutions, the organizations you work for? And the reason I'm asking this question is that there are many people from our college who might be considering employment with these three companies. So, to the extent you can give them the idea about the plus and minus of these companies, just to give an idea what kind of plus and minus compensation, work life balance, culture of the workplace, type of work, technology, business model, colleagues, brand, organization, any of the, you can touch upon any of the factors. For these three companies you work for and what you see in them and what would be a good insight you can provide about them.
Sure thing. So Google was the first job I had, I was an intern in 2006 in Bangalore, which that was the year when Google started an office in India for the first time, an R&D office. They had a sales office in Hyderabad before that. And they started this office with about 40 people from that were just repatriating. They were moving from the Bay Area to start this office in India. And of course, we had three alumni from computer science and ECE. Uh, and I distinctly remember going to them and like just learning from their experiences, having worked at Google. And I would say culture-wise, even though it was the company I spent the least time at, I would say it's the most engineer first, developer first company I worked at. It felt extremely empowering as an intern to be able to touch the Google search code base and to be able to contribute to it from week one. And to be able to innovate in ways that didn't require you to go get sign-offs with a bunch of product managers or execs. It's just us innovating, in ways that I would say as an intern, at that point in time, I didn't quite appreciate it that much because I didn't know what it was like to work at other companies. But looking back, I would say it's a refreshing culture of just innovation. And the fact that they would give the one day, like I don't know how much of that continues 15 years later today, but there was this notion of 20% time. So 1 in 5 days, you could use it to innovate in any area of interest to you. You didn't have to like sign up for a company related goal in like just a normal scheme of things. You could use that to do some side hustles, of course, ultimately contributing to Google. And you would see that products like Gmail and there are many internal tools at Google that were built during these side hustles. So that's Google. Microsoft Microsoft had a rich CEG alumni culture. Like they every year they and that's again thanks to the work done by our seniors about like 5 years before me. When I think one of the kind of playbooks we saw there was it required one or two of us to get in and then to crush it in our jobs in those companies to convince them to come to CEG for campus recruiting. And then the moment that happened, year after year, we had this cycle of 5 to 10 students, sort of a class of 130 that would get into these companies. So Google, I was the first batch, like I was the first batch of interns there. Microsoft, I was probably like something like the fifth batch. And as a culture, I would say the like looking back, Microsoft had some of the best technology. Uh, like as an example, deep learning in 2007 on GPUs. Before the Valley even spoke about this as the future of AI. You would have this great technology, and it would be used in creating products. Somehow, these products didn't translate to be high like products I enjoyed using. Like, as an example, I would enjoy using a Google Docs over a Microsoft Word or a Gmail over an Outlook, and that's when I realized just the importance of consumer just user experience design, and the importance of having an attention to every small detail that makes an experience great. And I think subsequently Microsoft has gotten a lot better at this, but this is one area where I would say I almost wanted to pick up the skill of how do you translate great technology to great products. And that's when I switched from being an engineer to being a product manager. And that in some ways inspired my move to the Valley to work for LinkedIn, because I thought LinkedIn was building products that were unique and in some ways creating value that was life changing. Like when you can help someone find their dream job, I can think of few other kind of life events that are as life changing as that. Uh, so that was Microsoft, and then I came to LinkedIn, and funnily enough, LinkedIn was acquired by Microsoft 4 years later. Uh, and so now we are part of Microsoft as our parent company. LinkedIn is the most it's the company that I would say has its culture codified the best. Like it's one of those companies where if you ask 80% of employees at the company why they work at LinkedIn and not X, X could be Facebook, Google, Microsoft, you would hear the word mission somewhere in their response. Uh, Mission, vision, the idea that the work you do helps people in the world connect with opportunities, the idea of creating economic opportunity for everyone in the world. That's the overarching mission that everyone is, like, in some ways finding a personal connection with. And I'd say the other thing that I love about LinkedIn is the work life balance. I have two kids, 3 and 1, and uh, during a pandemic, it's been one of those companies that has been extremely understanding of various life situations we may be in, and offers the kind of support we need to to be successful at work and in life. So,
Okay, super, super, super. The next question I have for you is, give me 1 second. Okay. The next question is, what technology or technologies that you see are the most in use today and in demand in companies like Microsoft, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. And following question is, which of these technologies will become obsolete, and what do you see things that are getting more critical and important?
great question, Vish. So, at Microsoft, for example, you have Satya, who took over from Balmer as the CEO a few years back. And on day one, he called the company cloud first, AI first company, which was in many ways reflective of where he sees the future. And I would say it's been reflected in everything we do. Almost every product we build has a huge infrastructure element that involves cloud computing capabilities, that requires us to just operate at massive scale. And the second would be in terms of AI. Almost everything we do is informed by huge volumes of data from which we've learned how to deliver value to to our customers. And the way we do that is by applying AI technologies. These are two, and within these, I would say there are just newer and newer technologies that come at a pace that almost has, I would say, the shortest life cycles I've ever seen for any technology so far. What I mean by that is when a new wave of technology comes in, it becomes obsolete like in a period of time that's the shortest that it's ever been. Like in the past, if you picked up C++ or a Java, it used to be the kind of technology that you would think would be relevant for 10 plus years. These days, if you pick up a TensorFlow, you don't know if in 3 years from today if if it would be cutting edge anymore, because there'll be the next wave coming in very quickly. Which is why I find it critical that keeping a pulse on where the the world of technology is going. And this you do largely through staying in touch with the community and having the ability to learn new stuff quickly. Like, which is why I think the two things that I come back to that I picked up from CEG that are super critical are the ability to build relationships and form communities and stay and keep a pulse on where the world is going. And the second would be the ability to adapt and learn something very quickly with the same level of rigor that we would have used during our engineering course. Those are the two dimensions that I would emphasize more than any specific technologies, because chances are that anything that I share with you today won't be relevant in 3 years from today.
Okay, super, super. I didn't understand the answer because I don't have any technology knowledge, but that's okay. So now the next question comes to something that all students want to know. Does LinkedIn hire students fresh out of college? How much experience do you look for typically? And what are you looking for in students and alumni to hire? What specific skill are you looking for? And the last question, the same list is: will you be willing to recruit our CET students via campus interviews?
Great questions. To be honest, I haven't been very closely in touch with the current campus recruiting process. So I think I should follow up on the do we plan to recruit this year. But in general, CEG continues to be amongst the tier one set of colleges that we recruit from. Our Bangalore office and our Bay Area office, we have several CEG alumni. In fact, 10 out of my classmates are at LinkedIn, and
10 of your classmates.
that's right.
Oh, wow.
Which is yeah, and like two of my closest friends are at LinkedIn. It's so let's just say that the reputation that the school has is just very high. And in terms of skill sets, you asked about seniority levels that we hire at. It's across the board, and entry level all the way through to. Recently, we had a senior director of engineering that was from CEG, join LinkedIn. Um, And in terms of skill sets that we look for, at least in the college recruiting phase, it was primarily the ability to solve problems using algorithms and data structures. And in these 15 years, I was really hoping that that would change. That we look at more just to ways to evaluate people's ability to apply skills like critical thinking to solve problems. But for the most part, things have remained the same. The ability to solve problems in technology, um, to show that you have that ability. And then there are non-technology roles as well. Like there's HR, legal, finance, um, product marketing. Product management itself, I would say, is a relatively technology focused role, but almost all of these roles have entry level requirements that I've seen CEG grads that go on to do an MBA that come back to join LinkedIn.
Okay. So next question I have for you is that you said that you would like to do recruiting for CEG. Has LinkedIn actually done campus recruiting at CEG? Do you know?
It's a great question. So I do know that at some point we did, but I don't know what the current plan is. So happy to follow up on this one.
So because what I want to do is I am also in touch with the people in the campus recruiting in CEG, the CUIC, and I after these meetings I feed them with inputs that I can provide from people like you to what they have to do. So if you can let a short answer on what does CEG need to do in order for LinkedIn to do campus recruiting, let's say coming year.
So,
Do they have to apply? Do they have to reach someone? Any such information?
Uh, the short answer is I don't know,
Okay.
but I will make sure I follow up with you, Vish, on this, because I care deeply about having CG presence at LinkedIn.
Okay. The next question, a related question, is that there are some companies I know. who used to come to campus recruiting and then they didn't have a good experience, they stopped coming. But some of these companies reach out to people like me and say, can we get students to be hired off campus? So the question I have is that if LinkedIn would like to do off-campus recruiting, not necessarily go through campus recruiting, if that is possible, we would like to know what is the best way to do that also.
Totally. I'll follow up on both on campus and off campus recruiting, and I'll also make sure I connect the COIC with specific recruiters that are responsible for entry level talent. That way, we continue to keep this communication channel going beyond this year.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So next question I have for you is that based on your experience, what advice can you give for students and young alumni to decide after they leave CEG? So things like should they be doing ME or MTech? Should they be doing MBA? Should they go work for a company? Should they start their own business? Just a quick idea about what do you see as the best advice you can give them.
Uh, I would say so. This is a piece of advice that I got from our former CEO of LinkedIn, Jeff Wiener, who I happened to. So we go on these walks around our Mountain View campus, and I would ask him, how do I chart a path from where I am today to where I want to go? He responded with something to the lines of, "Can you define for me what you want to be in 3 to 5 years? Like, tell me exactly. Like, you need to be precise with this. You should say, hey, I want to be a senior." So, as an example, for an entry level grad, it would be something to the lines of, I want to be a product leader, something like a senior product manager at a large technology company building consumer products used by millions of people. Or I want to be, I aspire to be a technology entrepreneur that builds products that ultimately generate millions of dollars in customer value, that in turn allows me to build a successful business. Something in these lines, defining what you want to be, allows you to then work backwards um, and decide which of these directions you want to go in. As an example, for me, I did not have a precise answer to this when I was graduating out of CEG, but I had a fuzzy notion of where I wanted to go. Uh, it was clear to me that I wanted to do something innovative in technology. And it was also clear to me that I wanted to do more than just product development. I wanted to ultimately work towards being CEO of a large technology company. And I would say almost every decision that I've made in this path would be towards those lines, including getting a master's in computer science from UIUC, because I felt that that was an important step to one, round up uh, my understanding of technology, but two, more importantly, understand, like, be exposed to a new way of learning, a new education system that would complement some of the best values that I took from the Indian education system, and that's what led me to go do a master's at that point in time. So I would say the more precise you can define what you want to be, the better your steps are going to be towards that.
Okay, super, super. Um, I think with Nitya, you had some questions for product stuff, right? So you can ask your questions now.
Yeah, thanks, Vish. Kumaresh, I have few questions. I mean, I think we can start with working in a product company. I started my career working with the product companies and being part of the growth of the product team. I have few questions for you. So, first question is, I see you have built the LinkedIn Job Seeker product, right? So, Are there any plans for LinkedIn to actually, again, it comes back to tie up with tier one colleges like CEG for hiring young talents? I think you have answered that.
Yeah, I'll definitely follow up on the hiring from CEG part. LinkedIn as a company has historically had several products for students. So, as an example, at some point we had a LinkedIn Students app, which was all about helping college grads be able to decide on a career path and to help them land an entry level job. Um, More recently, we decided that we want the entire LinkedIn app to work well for students. And so instead of having a separate app, we decided to sunset LinkedIn Students and instead started focusing on helping students do better job searches on LinkedIn and find mentors on LinkedIn that can help them with some of these moves. As an example, I get outreaches from CEG from CEG students all the time. Like on a like in any given week, I would have at least 3 or 4 outreaches from our students, and I try to connect them with the kinds of jobs or just advice that I can offer them that will help them make better decisions. So I would say the biggest value that LinkedIn as a platform offers students is honestly again the community, the ability to reach out, to look up and reach out to individuals in our fields. Um, in particular, you're able to even search for people who have graduated out of CEG, and that allows you to reach out to them through an email or a message. And more often than not, when you identify yourself in the subject line as a CEG student looking for advice, and more often than not, what I would say is be specific about how the other person can help you instead of just going, "Hey, are there any jobs that you can help me like help refer me to?" If you could be like, "Hey, can I get 15 minutes of your time to jump on a call to uh, get your inputs on this specific decision that I'm trying to make right now, which is, hey, I'm deciding between grad schools, or I am choosing to either work at this company or do my own thing, and I need some help thinking this through." The more you're able to build that kind of a relationship with someone from CEG over a long period of time, that relationship translates to the kind of relationship that naturally brings you the opportunities that you never knew existed. As an example, the person that helped me prepare for the Google internship interview was an alumni of CEG who was working at Google, who had interviewed me the previous year, and I had bombed that interview big time. So I
Okay.
went to her and I asked her, "Hey, this seems so in your second year of CEG, when you take an interview, you haven't even taken courses that are in the lines of what you're asked." So I would go to her and ask her, "Hey, what is it about the Google interview that makes it so hard for us to crack it?" Like, this was back in 2005, and she offered to spend something like 15 minutes with me. That was all it took. And she walked me through the line of thinking, which was that it wasn't really about like coming up with the precise solution to the problem that was being asked. It was the ability to come up with a line of thinking that showed that you can think through really hard problems. And to do that live in an interview, over a 30-minute window, was the biggest challenge. So I then, over the next year, before the next campus interviews happened, I made sure I did I just tried hundreds of hard problems just to see how this problem solving skill set can be built. And I would like till this date, I reach out to this alum and I tell her how much those 15 minutes made a difference. So that's the kind of community that I think our students should invest a lot more in.
Fantastic. Nice to hear. We have few questions from people. So this is a question I would also ask you. So, how essential is a this is a question from Santosh. So he's asking how essential is a computer science background to become a product manager from a guy with a non-computer science background. Currently, he's working as a business analyst.
Great question, Santosh. By the way, I would say business analysts have a certain skill set that's critical for product management that you can leverage. So there are four broad skills that I would say are critical for product managers of all levels: operational skills, technical skills, um, analytical skills, and consumer product mastery. So, operational skills are just your ability to get things done with a group of people. Your ability to know that a product manager brings together various functions: design, engineering, data science, marketing, legal, finance, operations. All these functions have a role to play in building a product, and your ability to bring them together towards a common vision, a common product roadmap is what operational skills is all about. And this is a skill set that is something that you can pick up in many functions. Like, for example, you may be a business analyst today, but you can choose to volunteer to be the person that brings many functions together to deliver something critical for the company you work for. And through that, you'll pick up operational skills. Technical skills, I wouldn't say a computer science background is a requirement. It's definitely preferred for product management roles in technology, but it is also something that I've seen a lot of people pick up over time. It's critical that you are able to understand your engineering team and inspire them to go in a certain direction. And more often than not, engineers tend to value people that have a strong technical background as a product manager. But I wouldn't say it's required, and it's certainly something that you can pick up. I've seen several successful product managers that have come from non-engineering fields. Um, but it's still a base level requirement. Analytical skills is something that business analysts, by the nature of its role, is something that just comes like second nature to you. So I would say it's where you should play to your strengths. And lastly, consumer product mastery. Mastery is a bit of a strong word, like just consumer product intuition. Your ability to look at uh, a product, a technical product, or even a non-technical product, like anything, you look at a product and you're able to articulate why the product is meeting the needs of a user or a customer, why the choices that they may have made in the design of this product makes it uniquely valuable for this user, and immediately having a keen eye for you to be able to say how you would improve this product to make it that much better for the users. These are the base skill sets that I would say a product manager needs. And then as you go more senior within the product management career, strategy, leadership, and business come in, business acumen, like understanding how the business works, understanding the competitive landscape, and how you can help your company position itself within a crowded competitive landscape. These skill sets become more important as you grow. I wouldn't say it's a requirement for entering the product management role.
Hey, Kumaresh, looks like the questions that are coming are mostly in the product area. There's one question I see which is upvoted by several people. Nitya, maybe you can ask the person who asked the question to unmute and ask the question about
Uh,
building instant teams. Maybe you can ask the person who has asked the question because it is showing as anonymous here.
Anonymous. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So whoever it is that asked the question, can you please unmute yourself and ask the question?
So, so the question, I'll read out the question. How do you build trust amongst various teams, especially engineering, in your first 90 to 120 days as a new product manager?
Great question. I would say
The, not sure who asked the question.
I asked that question. I can add a little bit more context also, if that helps. I'm a new product manager at a super, super technical product. And I was an engineer before this, but I still find it very hard to build trust amongst the engineering teams, because they all have like PhDs in their field, and taking direction from someone who has not done, I work in robotics, who's not worked in robotics before, is sometimes difficult for them. So even though I have a little bit more of the business side's context, they find it difficult to take direction. So any advice?
Itra, great question, and that context helps a lot. I have been in your shoes, working with deeply technical engineering teams that have clearly domain expertise in their areas that you, let alone 90 to 120 days, and like the next 5 years, you wouldn't be able to pick up the same kind of depth, because that's what we do as product managers, right? Like we choose to be good enough in certain areas to be able to provide clarity in direction, but we don't claim to be experts in any particular domain. I would say the things that work for me, number one is to become a really strong listener, to try to understand the underlying technology to a level of depth that allows you to just be able to like, if someone were to ask you how does this system work, if you are in a position to be able to draw a bunch of boxes on a whiteboard and go at a high level, I see that this is how this underlying technology works. There are many details that I'm not aware of, but I have this high level understanding of how things work. That's like, I would say, step one. And getting to that requires you to spend a lot of time with engineers asking questions and being a listener. But that aside, identifying one way in which you can lead, the area that worked the best for me was to be the voice of the user. So to be the person that's the best advocate for the customer or the user in any one of these forums. So as an example, if I'm leading an AI team that is responsible for building technology for, uh, let's just say I work at YouTube, and this team is responsible for making sure there is no harmful content that comes onto YouTube as a platform. And there are these deep learning engineers that have the best domain expertise in image and video understanding to classify what's harmful and what's not. I could be the voice of the user that goes, here are all the ways in which I find the content on YouTube to be harmful today. And I've run both user studies, and over a period of time, I've built the intuition for this product in such a way that I can tell you that 60% of the times it's going to be harmful because of X, 30% because of Y, 5% because of Z, and then you have a long tail of reasons why it's harmful. And you would go, hence, I think our product portfolio over the next 6 months should focus on the 60% problem. And that, I trust you, my engineering team, to go get this done, so long as we agree that this is the problem that we're going after, and this is how we're going to measure progress against this problem, and that success in the next 90 days is going to be based off of us getting to, let's just say, having solved this problem 80% of its way. So I would take that approach, and I'm happy to share more in this specific domain, Netra, because I understand that robotics and AI are like close enough domains.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be super happy to connect with you and talk about this further. Thank you so much for your answer. Super helpful.
Sure.
Um, Thanks, Netra, for your question. So, I have this question. When you're building any product, right? So you got to be connected with the user. But that happens. That kind of culture is quite prevalent in very small teams when you are building a startup, right? But then, when you are actually growing really big, how do you actually pass on that culture to your end junior team? You know, that's how the team is actually focused on the user intents to actually build products and bring in innovation, right? So how what's your take on that?
Zarina, great questions. I would say The best ways in which you can pass, so you can establish a culture of being obsessed about user needs, is by anchoring everything that you do at the company towards that. Like, as an example, you as a leader, if you are laying out a vision or a roadmap for a team, uh, if you are able to lead with, hey, here are the users that we are serving, and here are the needs that we're going to first serve for this set of audiences. So, as an example, on LinkedIn, we have many different audiences. We have job seekers, we have hiring managers and recruiters, we have salespeople, marketers, we have creators, we have event organizers, group organizers. These are all audiences that we can try to serve. And at any given point in time, a team is focused on a subset of these users and their needs. So, for example, when I was leading the careers team, I was focused just on job seekers and helping them find jobs. So, one of the ways in which, as we hired new product managers, new engineers, one of the ways in which we help them build this intuition for what the you know we help them connect with the pain points of what our users feel um, is by having them uh, for a good like for the first 3 months of a new product manager or an engineer, we would just tell them to go use our product to find a job. And
Eat
it'd
your
be
own
like,
dog
go
food.
talk to job seekers, right? Go talk to individuals that are using your product. So just in-mail them, like find a few people that are using your product and in-mail them and go, hey, just can I just observe you as you're using your product for 30 minutes? You of course do user research where you bring in a group of people and you can also look at how they use the product. Unless you are able to feel the same emotion, the same, like job seeking as an example is a painful process, right? Like it may take 6+ months to find the job you're looking for. And unless you are able to empathize with that pain, unless you are able to understand where are some of the biggest challenges, you won't be effective as a product manager or even as an engineer building the right products for these audiences. So I would say that upfront investment in putting yourself in the shoes of your users is critical to build that empathy and that connection with your users.
Rightly put. I mean, it's in short, it's eat your own dog food. That's how you learn, become your own user of your own product. Right. So, yeah, uh, we have questions from others. We see that you have transitioned from a product manager to your to senior director of product in LinkedIn, right? What would you say some of the challenges or difficulties you faced during this transition, and what are some of the soft skills uh, you'll have to learn along the way in order to for this transition to happen?
Uh, there are several, so it's been a 9-year journey at LinkedIn, and there are several intermediate milestones between being a product manager and a senior director. I would say uh, almost at every step of this way, there were a new set of challenges. And I think learnings that I almost had to unlearn. So I'll give you a few examples. As a product manager, in order to become a senior product manager, it became clear that I had to be a lot more independent in driving everything I do. Like it's everything from coming up with the PR, with the product requirements to coming up with a roadmap. It required an approach that required me to be a lot more proactive and just having a pulse of where the team is at any point in time. And then switching from a senior product manager to a group product manager, where you are now managing as a first level manager a group of product managers. Like it would be, maybe between 3 and 7 product managers that you would directly manage. And at that point in time, it's recognizing that your role is no longer being um, the the smartest person in the room, the one that's giving direction. Instead, it is to assemble a team that can be better than you at what you did as a product manager. And at that point in time, it was to understand your role as being that of a leader that it makes the team better and not just like you as an individual better as a group product manager. And then the switch from group product manager to director required a different set of skill sets. It required you to not just be great in the operations of one team, but to understand the needs of an entire organization and to be able to cater to it. So, because you're leading multiple group product managers, and ultimately you're owning a P&L, like you're responsible for a line of revenue that you're holding yourself accountable to. And that brings with it a whole set of unique challenges. And the transition between director and senior director is not that much really. It's just even more scope. And then ultimately, in at least these traditional product careers, there's VP of product, and then there is head of product, and then the CEO, right? So those are kind of the three next levels. And I'm sure there are things that I do today as a senior product director of product that won't lead to success if I were to be a VP of product, because it just requires a different set of skills. So I think the biggest learning I've had from all of this is to be hyper adaptable to the needs of your new role, and to not just rest on uh, what made you come to that role in the first place. Like, things that made you successful as a senior product manager are no longer going to help you succeed as a senior director. So uh, and the best way to learn this is to go talk to people that you think are role models, that you think are the best VPs of product at the company today, and to learn from them, to understand from them what are things that they had to almost stop doing, and new things that they had to start doing to be successful in their new roles. Uh, and, and and I almost think it's just a repeatable kind of playbook, so long as you have this ability to learn.
Nitya, I think we have another 10, maximum 15 minutes because already 9 o'clock in India. So maybe another 10, 15 minutes you can take some questions and then just need a couple of minutes at the end for me to do a little closing point. Okay.
Sure. Um, so we have the question from Shivakumar Subaya. So can you unmute yourself and ask the question, Shivakumar?
Yeah, you're able to hear me, Shivaya?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is more no generic question. In terms of some of the areas like deep learning, AML, big data, do you see the availability less in US, and also do you see cost of such people in India increasing? Um, and is that a no disadvantage for US based companies?
So, Kumar, do you mind just repeating that question? Sorry, I didn't get it fully. So, is the
Yeah,
cost? Yeah, go for it.
yeah, some of the new technologies, right, like big data,
Hmm.
artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, we are finding a scarcity in India also,
That's right.
because of which the costs are increasing.
That's right.
So, how do you see that availability in the US? And given that the India skills are getting costly, do you see that as a what to say disincentive for companies in the US to look at people from India and these skills?
Great question. So, it is clear that at least the skill sets that you just talked about, so Kumar, there is like more demand than there is supply globally. and the value generated by people with these skills is disproportionately high uh, because of this like supply demand gap, as well as we're just starting to see the application of these technologies to newer and newer problems at a pace that has been like never seen before. As an example, the application of deep learning to get us to a COVID vaccine in record time, right? Until that point in time, a deep learning engineer may not have been hired by a pharmaceutical company to go devise a vaccine. But now the value that that person just generated to the world is materially higher than what they thought deep learning was valued at. So in that sense, like the way I look at this is I actually think as the price for these skill sets increase in India, if anything, it's just moving towards a more fair world where uh, the it's the skill set is being valued closer to the so in an ideal world the value you generate for a company should be rewarded with like proportionate to the value that the company gets out of everything you delivered, right? So as an example, if I brought in $10 million as a salesperson to a company, then I have something like a 20% or a 10% commission. So I'm able to take a $1 or $2 million in commission from that. Somehow in technology fields, right, like if we as engineers or as product managers bring that kind of value, there isn't this direct connection to what we brought. And I actually think the fact that these engineers are costing more is absolutely the right direction. Like over a period of time, I even see the convergence of US and India compensations to be closer together. As an example, I think 5 years back when we started the this was like 7 years back. 7 years back when we started the LinkedIn India office, the cost of a LinkedIn India engineer, like for the price of one US engineer, you could hire seven India engineers. Today, regardless of skill set, like deep learning, any particular skill set, that ratio is more like 1:3. So for one US engineer, you're only able to hire three engineers in India. And I think that's just reflective of the disproportionate value that an engineer in India brings to the table today. That's one. And the second part is, of course, that we are realizing how remote work can still be highly productive, and that we are learning as teams to work with more globally distributed organizations. And as a result, uh, this is like something that over the next 10 years, it's going to be fascinating to see. Like, are you going to be paid based off of the value you generate or where your home is at, right? We are already starting to have some questions where, as an example, like a 5 year tenured engineer at LinkedIn says, "Hey, I don't quite like the lifestyle in the Bay Area. I want to move to Austin, which has much lower cost of living. Are you going to lower my compensation just because I made that move, even though I'm going to be on the same Zoom calls, the same time zones, right? I'm willing to work in your time zone. Would you be adjusting my compensation?" It's a big question that we are working through. But I would say it's a very healthy sign in general.
Sure. Thanks, Kumaresh.
So, the lighter question that I have for you is that, I see you are a part-time chess player. So, I'm sure the chess game must have had an influence in building and innovating products in your career. Can you share some of your experiences? I mean, has it influenced in any way?
Sure. I started off. This whole journey started off with me thinking I'll be a chess player. I wasn't particularly interested in tech, computer science, any of this. I just wanted to play chess for a living. And there came this point where I wasn't making it to the top five in India. And I remember having a conversation with a mentor who asked me something to the lines of, "Hey, unless you make it to the top 50 in the world before you're 20, uh, you either, so you have two options from that point onwards if you don't make it. Option one is to become a chess coach. You need a passion for teaching chess, or it's likely that you'll become a drug peddler. Uh, he just goes, that's how obsessed people are with the game, to the point where like they just go find other ways to make a living and they continue playing the game they love. But it's just not an economically viable sport, at least at that point in time, right? Because it's not a spectator sport. It doesn't bring in the ad revenue that you would have in an IPL for cricket. Uh, I mean, it's just a little bit unfortunate that Indian sports people go through that for most sports that aren't spectator sports. Um, so that was an inflection point where I was like, okay, so clearly I'm not a Vishwanathan Anand. And I could work and keep trying harder, like I was giving it my best, but I just felt that he was a league apart. And the second part of this was at the time when a machine defeated a human for the first time in chess. Deep Blue defeated Kasparov, so the best machine beating the best human at a sport that was considered the most intellectual sport at that point in time, right? The one that you thought humans would be great at for a long period of time. So um, that was an inflection point where I asked myself, do I want to be on the winning side if I see humans losing to machines in the long run? Would I rather be the one programming machines? And that's what led to the computer science switch when I was 13, 14 years old.
Interesting. So I say a lot of the people learning poker in order to understand the strategies involved in management. I see that trend in Bangalore actually among the tech people and product people. So yeah, I think we are done with the questions. We have one more last question. We'll close off now. We have a question from Venkatesh P. Venkatesan. Can you unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time, Kumaresh. Could you please talk about being a techie to a C level? Everybody have a dream, right? And also the second part of the question: what are the skills or challenges been through that, right? The way that we see as a techie is different. The way that you look at a C level is altogether different. It's a complete transformation needed, and every engineer to become a C level, right? Number one. The second question, could you please talk about your search process? Um, like after you reach US, Microsoft and LinkedIn, does it your I see you are a Siebel scholar, which is a highly reputed, and I was going through your profile as well. So does it help, or any reference help to you, or your the education in MS here helped you to transform being a techie guy or engineer to an a C level? Could you please talk about those experience?
Sure, Venkatesan. Thanks for that. Thanks for the question. On the first one, I often find us techies kind of underplaying ourselves, right? Like just in terms of the value we deliver to a company. Like we don't, not being close enough to the business that we serve doesn't allow us to translate the kind of, hey, if I delivered on this product, how much value is that generating for the company? And should I even know the value that I just generated for the company? Um, I think that's where the biggest kind of transition point comes from, realizing that the role of technology is ultimately in service of a larger goal that you have for the organization that you're part of to the world. Like, for example, at LinkedIn, it is okay, our vision is to create economic opportunity for everyone in the world. And the way we do that is, as techies, we build products that allow people to search for jobs, connect with each other, and ultimately get economic opportunity. Now, if we remained a techie, we would continue focusing on how we make the job search product more relevant, faster, how it operates at a larger scale, and all of that is important. But if you aspire to make a transition into some of these other roles that involve leadership of any kind, be it technical leadership or people leadership, or ultimately organizational leadership, right, where you're leading, like you want to enter the C-suite, uh, it it requires just this level of understanding of how the entire business operates, the role we play, the role every other non-technical function plays. As an example, being very comfortable with representing sales or data science or design as a function and the role they play, even as a technology leader. It requires just that understanding of what each of these players have a role to play in a larger team, and I would say it comes down to end of the day a combination of one, this ability to learn and like just learn from non-technical functions well enough, the challenges, the role they play, and so on. And secondly, of course, people skills, the ability to inspire a large group of people, be it technical or non-technical people, to ultimately make those transitions. And as for the job search, Venkatesan, I would say almost all of my job searches, like, even take LinkedIn as an example. Getting a job at LinkedIn for me was about using LinkedIn as a product itself. So I reached out to someone from Pakistan who was an alumni of UIUC, who was now a director of product at LinkedIn. I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, I see that you and I have a lot in common. I want to get to know you, talk to you about roles at LinkedIn." And he also used to work at Microsoft previously, so there was just a lot in common. And um, he referred me, and that was a first step, right? You get a first interview, and after that, it's about you doing well in those interviews and making sure you give your best shot of getting it. So that's like, this is why I would, if there's one thing I'd like you to take away from this hour and 15 minutes, it is to recognize the power of communities and of individuals, and to think about products like LinkedIn and like any other product, really, even thinking about this community of individuals, these 20 people that have come together for this session. Think of every one of them as an opportunity to get to know others, and see if there's an opportunity that is behind these relationships.
Thank
To the
you.
end of the session,
Yeah, think
Kumaresh, a couple of things I want to say before we close it. One is, some people have asked, is it possible to contact you? So what we have given to them so far is your LinkedIn profile only. Any further information that you want to give, what I'm going to ask people to do is to contact you via LinkedIn, and you can decide, or you can put your email. Okay, great. Whichever way, because I want people to be able to reach out to you to ask any further questions. We couldn't get through all the questions today. There are a few more questions left in the queue. I have one last question, really quick one. Is there anything you can give to us CEGNs from LinkedIn that others aren't getting, public is not getting? Like any preview of a new functionality or something like that.
Um, Hey, I do have something like five, I think five LinkedIn premium subscriptions. Like I have something like 10 in total for every year, and I think I've given out five all to CG alums or
Oh, wow.
students. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll have just five. So sorry to make this sound like one of those, hey, first five people to reach out kind of thing.
No, not five anymore. Four now. I got one
yeah.
already.
Just three again. I think
It's
count me
fine.
in.
No, I think we are. I'm trying to reach out to a lot more people. So premium would be. I had used premium before. It was quite helpful. If you have a complimentary, I would like to use it to contact more people like you to get to these sessions actually. So if you can do that, fine. And then the last thing I want to say is that if people contact you further for further questions, you could probably tell them what's the best way to work with you through email or through text or whatever it is. because there are some people who are in the Bay Area also who might want to touch base with you also, right? So you can decide on that. The session today is, I could not record myself. Is it recorded by you?
Yeah, it's been recorded by someone else. So
You're able to record, right, Nitya?
yeah, yeah. It's been
Okay.
recorded by Partha.
By who? Partha.
Partha,
Okay,
yeah,
lovely,
yeah.
Yeah, I
lovely.
am recording.
Yeah, but what we want to do is we want to put the recording for people who are not able to join. There is a constant complaint from CEGNs in Australia and in east side of the world that they are not able to join because it's middle of the night for them. I couldn't find any one time that fits everybody in the world. But at one point, I want to give them a chance. So maybe one of those sessions, I will probably do it at 8 a.m. in the morning in India, which will be more convenient for them. But as far as your session goes, I think the questions were very good. I think it was quite a detailed discussion on what it takes to get jobs, etc. All that. The combination people who come to the sessions are a combination of students and alumni. I'm not very happy that students are not coming in bigger numbers actually. So I had already spoken to some of the CEG professors and say that, hey, look, if you're not interested in your students not getting this, then students from MIT and AC Tech and other colleges are far more interested. In fact, I'm not taking them yet, but they are asking if they can join. So I'm going to ask them to put that thing. What would be useful also, Kumaresh, is that if you could just send your thoughts on how this session went, what you saw was helpful to you, what you thought about the questions, the participation, etc., all that, and what would you do differently if you were to run this program next time. Things like that would be useful. And same thing for the rest of the guys who are attending the session. You can use Slido for some more time. Slido will be open. So if you guys want to, I'll just put an open question there for comments. And if you guys want to type any questions or comments or feedback, you can do it for another day. So we at least we get to know what your feedback is, and we can take it from there. The next session, in terms of frequency, a lot of people are asking for one session per month. What I have is that I have a list of about 200 people that I want to do this kind of interviews. If I do one a month, it will take me 18 years. So what I'm thinking is if I do two a month, then I'll do it at least in 9 years. Actually, for going further, I want to actually do a little bit of panel meetings where we have maybe two or three people. But the challenge I have is that if I do a panel, then not each speaker will not get enough time to answer the questions. They won't get the in-depth conversation with you. But anyway, we're going to figure out if it is worth doing one-on-ones or worth doing a panel. But I do want to use more of these sessions and more often. So next one probably would be in the middle of September. The next speaker which I am hoping to get is a person who is a CEO of a company in California. She's a senior women CEG alumni, and she's a CEO of a company in California. I'm trying to get her. Her schedule is just impossible to get, but she has promised me that she will give me a slot for an hour sometime before the middle of September. So I'm going to try and shoot for it in mid-September. It's just a FYI. But again, thank you so much, Kumaresh. I know it's a little early morning for you in San Jose, California. Appreciate you joining on a Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. I wouldn't do it myself, I can tell you. So, but it was really nice. And I don't know, guys, if you noticed that Nitya and I are wearing a CG t-shirt. So we took the effort to put a CG t-shirt. So please say thank you to us if you can, please. And if you guys want to wear this t-shirt, you can order the t-shirt. I know where it is available. And if you guys want to get that, you can shoot a message to me, and I will try and get that t-shirt to you for a nominal price.
Yes, please, Vish. I don't fit into
Sure.
mine anymore.
Thanks.
Like, we have multiple sizes. We have men's t-shirt, women's t-shirt, different sizes, all combinations we have. Don't worry, we can take care of anyone. We are equal opportunity college. Okay, all right. With that, I think we'll close the session, guys. Again, it was a good session. Thanks for joining. We had people from all over the world today. Literally, we had people from the US, from Europe, from India, from Asia as well, and Middle East. So it's a good way to get all these people at the same time. I hope the participation improves. Those of you who joined and listened to the call today, maybe you can tell your buddies, CG buddies, that they should also join these calls. We need to encourage people to join more because at the end of the day, these programs will not be useful unless it goes to the intended audience. The intended audience is essentially the youngsters, people who are coming out of college, people who are young alumni, but they're the ones who need this kind of guidance the most. That doesn't mean that the senior alumni cannot join, but I would think that senior alumni will have the most get the most value out of this. So with that, guys, thank you so much for joining, all of you, and we will see you in the next session sometime in September. Bye bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.